Hey everyone, I hope you had a great day. In this video we are looking at some new r/prorevenge stories. I hope you enjoy them. The first story is called All Because He Wouldn't Let Me Watch a Movie. This happened 3 years ago at a pizza place I used to work. I was a delivery driver for 6 years at various pizza places, picking up and moving on to greener pastures whenever it suited me. Granted, that only happened a couple of times because I am unfortunately a very loyal employee. To be honest, I should have done that before this whole thing ever even happened. The store I was at was part of a nationwide franchise and the waters had gotten choppy. All of the managers quit at once and they just couldn't seem to get one to stick around. It got so bad that the area manager had to come in as acting general manager and brought a manager from another store with him. These two are the main characters of the story. Well, besides me obviously. For the purpose of this story, we'll call them Jeff and Kate, and I'll just be me. Jeff was 45 and had been with the company for a long time before I started. He worked himself up from the position of driver all the way to being the one to oversee about 20 stores. He was actually married to another area manager. I got along okay with Jeff for the most part. On the other hand, Kate and I got on like a house on fire, both being ladies of a similar age. She often confided things with me that would soon bite her in the back, figuratively. I considered myself a decent employee as far as pizza slingers go. I came to work on time, did all the dishes, got along with everyone and had the best delivery times. Because of this, I usually landed all the best shifts, including opening on Saturdays. If you have ever worked a tip job, you know that shift is the most coveted out there. Working through both the lunch and dinner rush before going home is well worth having to get up earlier. That information is relevant to the story, trust me. You see, there are always two drivers who do that shift. One comes in earlier and leaves earlier, and I was the one who got to come in just before we flipped on the open sign and went home once the dinner rush began to die down. This is also relevant. The final vital bit of info you need for context is that my brother goes a bit wild at Christmas. His favorite thing to do is book an entire movie theater for everyone he knows to see a movie of his choice. This particular year was when The Last Jedi came out and he is a Star Wars fanatic, so that was what we were going to see. Unfortunately, it would be at 6 on a Saturday, at least 2 hours before I would get off. At this point, Jeff and Kate had been with us for 3 months without managing to find suitable replacements. I made an arrangement with the other opening driver to switch shifts, because his ended right when I would need to leave to make the movie. I then cleared it with Jeff and he agreed to let me go at 5:30. I was all set, or so I thought. You see, that Saturday we started busy, very busy. So busy that at 5:30, when I went to hand Jeff my slips, he had already dispatched me out on a double delivery. I took them, but reminded him that I needed to leave when I got back. I just hope the trailers were long enough that I didn't miss much of the beginning of the movie. I got back from my double, and by that point it was already 6 and the theater was 20 minutes away. I had to leave. Once again, I went to hand my slips to Jeff, but he got in my face. You leave when I say you can leave. You're not going to let me? I was incredulous that he was reneging on our deal. I came in early. I did my time. He looked so very smug. No. Well, I made a decision right then and there. There are so many pizza jobs out there that they needed me more than I needed them. I took my slip book, you know, the kind that you see in restaurants. I found they are great for delivery, because not only can you store all of your slips in them, but they are hard enough for customers to bear down on to sign. Anyway, I slapped that in his hand and said, "Fine then, I quit." It was his turn to look incredulous. After making sure I meant it, he checked me out and I left the store fuming. I missed the entire opening of my movie. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no, you remember how I said Kate would confide in me? She loved to tell me all about how often she and Jeff would meet at a hotel after work. She even horrified me by telling me Jeff would turn off the cameras so they could have fun in the back office when the store was empty, in a chair I had sat in multiple times. Kate was even so obliging to give insignificant details like the date and time this happened. So I put in an anonymous call to the franchise's HR and told them what to look for when it came to checking the tapes. I told them everything Kate had told me. But I still wasn't content with leaving it there. So I went to my local pizza place, which just happened to be in Jeff's wife's area. And I got to gossiping with the workers there while they made my pizza. I was well aware it would make it back to her. Food employees can't keep such juicy gossip to themselves. Jeff got demoted to store manager, then transferred to the same store in his wife's area I went to, so she could keep an eye on him. I guess it didn't work out, because last I heard was that Jeff's wife divorced him and he no longer worked for that franchise. And none of that would have happened if he had just let me leave on time. The last story is called Good Revenge May Take Time, but it's worth it. This happened a few years ago. It was a bad year for me and the economy was not in great shape. Unemployment was fairly high. I had been working at a hardware store, but things went bad and the owner sold everything and moved to Florida. I finally landed a job at a factory. It was bad work, involving putting zinc plating on metal parts. The owner was all about profit and had little regard for worker safety. Somehow he would get a heads up whenever an OSHA inspector was coming. We would have to work hard cleaning, installing safety equipment on the machinery and so on. Once the inspector left, the safety equipment was put back in storage, so there would be no wear and tear on it. I suffered through it all, as did my coworkers, because we were young, had no skills or experience, and jobs were scarce. One day, the piece of machinery I used, think of something that looks like a concrete mixer, broke while I was loading it with the parts. The drum fell, hitting the bucket I was holding. The bucket was full of metal parts and weighed somewhere around 80 pounds when it was full. This caused me to lose my balance and ultimately injured my back. I tried to tough it out, but I was in a lot of pain. I go to tell the foreman. She leaves the floor and finds the owner. She comes back about 10 minutes later and tells me to clock out and go home. I'm young and naive. I know nothing about workers' compensation. I spent a few hundred of my own money going to a chiropractor and finally to a doctor. When I go back to work a couple of days later, I am informed that I have been demoted due to my injury. I'm relegated to being a custodian and my hourly pay had been cut. I held on for a few months before quitting and moving on. And here's the pro-revenge. It's a few years later. I've graduated from college, got a good job, and I'm a little older and wiser. I come home from work and I'm watching the evening news. The state I live in has an office similar to the EPA. The news station did one of those human interest stories and interviewed the man who investigated the illegal environmental stuff. The story was about how he had dropped the bomb on a corporation that had been illegally dumping zinc waste. My ears perked up. You see, that company I used to work for used zinc to plate their little metal parts. Lots of zinc. My workstation with the drum? My job was to fill it with the metal parts and then fill the drum with a zinc, water, acid slurry. Once the parts were plated, guess what the next part of my job was? I dumped the slurry into a trough, which led to a hole in the wall of the factory, which led to a ditch, which led to a creek. The factory had been illegally dumping zinc waste into a ditch. I immediately got in my car and drove there. The factory was still in business and they were still dumping the zinc waste into a creek. I took pictures, I took a video, and then I turned it all in, along with a notarized affidavit to the state's inspector. The original fine was in excess of 100 grand. They appealed, and I don't know what the settlement entailed. But the business closed shortly after. What do you think about today's stories? Which one was your favorite? Please let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you are new here. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.